Здравствуйте, добрый день. Мы
Good morning.
сегодняшним утром во второй завершающий день конференции
During our second day of the conference, we will begin our first roundtable. It's the Museum Forum. It's our joint project of Russian Jewish Museum and the Russian Jewish Congress, and today we'll speak about how museums work, how they counteract anti-Semitism, how they develop educational programs, and other museum projects to prevent anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and racism. And so we start with representatives that couldn't come to us. They will be with us online, and we'll begin with this part. And our first participant is curator and the head of POLIN Museum,
Dagmara Manka-Wizor.
Dagmara Manka-Wizor. The floor is yours.
Здравствуйте, мне очень приятно с вами встретиться.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be with you, and then I'll continue in English because I don't quite remember Russian.
I'm very happy to meet you. Welcome. I'm really happy to join you, even if the situation and the conditions are as we know, and most of us or many of us decided to join the conference online. I'm quite surprised. I'm the first one to present, so I feel it as quite a huge responsibility, and I will do my best to keep my time. Before I will start to share my presentation, I think it should work. I would like to give a very, very short introduction. Museum of the History of Polish Jews already operates 10 years. So we present the 1,000 year of the history of the Polish Jews, Polish Jewish community, Polish Jewish relations. And our main mission as a museum is, of course, to preserve and to present the heritage of the Polish Jews, the history of the Jews. But it's also education. And as education, we understand not only, again, educating about Jewish tradition, Jewish history, Polish-Jewish relation, but we are thinking more about multicultural education, civic education, and as many museums at the moment all over the world, we really believe that as a museum we can start, or we can do the change, we can be the factor of the change in nowadays societies. Due to the shortage of time, I will not present you the general background of the situation in Poland and in Europe, because I guess since we all are meeting here on this meeting, we all are aware of what the situation is, what challenges we have to tackle, and how the polarization, not only anti-Semitism, but generally xenophobia and all isms like Romophobia, Islamophobia, etc., how they are growing last years, last months. So I will try to give you a short run through our programs. And I will try to show you how we attempt this goal of tackling xenophobia or something like this. I will start with screen sharing. And please just give me the sign if you see my screen. Okay, thank you. So, "Don't be indifferent" is the quotation from Marian Turski. He is one of our organizer, founders, head of our board, Auschwitz survivor, and this is a quotation from his speech on the last year day of the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Auschwitz in January 2020. "Don't be indifferent" was about each of us is responsible, what is going on, what is happening. And by being indifferent, we're actually responsible for discrimination, we're responsible for polarization. So how we as a museum can tackle it? And we do it mostly via different line of historical, educational, cultural programs, because we strongly believe that a lot of stereotypes, a lot of prejudices comes from lack of knowledge, lack of contact, lack of chance to understand the others. So we try to discover together with our audience the beauty of diverse cultures, of religions, of traditions. We are also trying to search Jewish input in everyday life. We go also to deeper programs, like we discuss the past and we try to connect the past mechanism together with nowadays with contemporary issues, challenges. And we try to teach critical thinking, try to teach how to confront stereotypes, how to react for discrimination. And one of our programs, which from the first point of view, it doesn't look like a really anti-discrimination program. It's a Jewish food festival, and generally huge scope of programs devoted to Jewish food, Jewish cuisine, because it goes with the first thing I said, that by getting to know, by learning about the tradition of Jews, by sensitizing people to it, but acknowledging them that this heritage is present in our everyday life, we start the discussion of how it is present and what we can observe. Also, we try to reach out from the museum and we try to travel with different educational expositions. One of this is Museum on Wheels, which we already visited 100 towns all over the Poland, with short 3-4 days programs about local Jewish history and about local Jewish heritage. It's also a museum, they feel no space, reviving memory of Polish Jews in public spaces. This is an exhibition which travels not only in Poland, but also abroad, as you can see on the presentation. And we try to discuss how local public, local artists remember Jewish present and try to bring it back via murals in different places. We also do a lot of city tours when we guide people all over the Warsaw and not only in Warsaw, showing how much of Warsaw was Jewish. Before the war, before the 1939, 30% of citizens of Warsaw, of capital of Poland, were Jews, and it is still present in our city. Last 2 years made us force us to move online, and we were quite successful in doing online programs. I chose few of them, like Zoom to the Jewish cuisine, Zoom to the everyday Jewish life, and Zoom to the history of Jewish-Polish relations. The last one is devoted exactly to the stereotypes, to the discrimination of Jews and to the roots, historical roots of the discrimination. Thanks to the online programming, there are a lot of people who would never visit the museum, but they are taking part in our programs and learning together with us. One of our main audience are youth, because it is teenagers who will shape our future. So we try to work with them as strongly and as deeply as possible, inviting them to different programs, also inviting them to intercultural exchange between Polish, Jewish, Polish Israel, Polish German groups of students or university students. And we have scientific programs, which are on the other level of research on anti-Semitism, on Polish-Jewish relations, and on the past. And then we are using these results of the research for the future and for present programs. And what is quite important, and I believe it it really has a huge outreach, are trainings and materials for multipliers. So for those professional groups which can pay it forward, which can learn from us and then multiply our programs. So we reach the teachers because we are not able to visit every school or invite every Polish school to our museum. But we believe that if we will empower teachers, they will continue. So we do a lot of international and national conferences for the future, for teachers, regular programs like Tuesday for Teachers, when we discuss with teachers contemporary problems focused on multiculturalism, tackling polarization in schools, tackling discrimination in schools. And also we're preparing for teachers educational programs they can use. Most of the programs of educational materials are based on Jewish history, on Jewish testimonies. You can see on the screen some of the accessed online teachers' materials. Some of them are also accessed in English and in other languages. So in case you're interested, you can use the Eternal Echoes or Eyewitness programs. And also we have very, I would say, quite a big anti-discrimination program with one strong leg devoted and addressed to teachers and other strong leg addressed to police, because police officers are the one who define anti-Semitism in public space. They are the one who should, if they face anti-Semitic behavior or destruction of the heritage, they are the one who should prepare the materials and go further. We are also working with the police officers on, we are giving them anti-discrimination trainings, and we are working with them on capacity building cooperation with Jewish community, but also with Roma community and other minority communities. So-called community policing, we're empowering them and doing also training for trainers, for police trainers. And last but not least, it was very fast, but I hope you got something from this very short presentation, and I put my email. So if you're interested in any of this project or just in discussion or sharing materials, I will be more than happy to answer you. And thank you very much. Thank you for invitation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dagmara. I was always fascinated by POLIN's project, and we, in our practice, learn a lot and always coming to you for your expertise. Thank you for sharing it. We will not have time for questions right now. We will have a discussion at the end of our forum. And now we proceed with next speaker from Norway. We have two speakers from Oslo Jewish Museum, the director, Torill Torp-Holte, and the researcher, Kjetil Braut Simonsen, if you hear us. Hi. Are you ready to start, or we should...
Well, I'm not going to say much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, because we have our scientist Kjetil Braut Simonsen, who is going to talk about this education program that we have. And I saw a minute ago that he put his PowerPoint up on the screen. Well, I see it here coming. Do you see it?
Not
yet. Can you see it? Not yet. I think he's struggling. Well, I see it on my screen. Don't you see it? It works. Okay. Yeah. I can just add that we are kind of also working as the POLIN Jewish Museum in a lot of fields. But we decided to present this very, very special education resource that we made for schools to use online. And Kjetil has been the responsible for the content, and also been he has also been a little responsible for the design. You have designed things, Kjetil, come on. Together with other people. So he will present it. He's the best one to present this special resource that we made a couple of years ago.
Yes, I just have to find everything here on the technical level. We have a bit. We are changing all the windows in our apartment, so it's a bit has been a bit stressed to find a place to sit and everything. But no, I'm ready. Okay. Yes, my name is Kjetil Braut Simonsen. I'm a researcher at the Jewish Museum in Oslo, and I am going to talk about our web resource. Antisemitism past and present in Norwegian, and antisemittisme før og nå. Antisemitism past and present is a digital resource created by Jewish Museum in Oslo. As the title indicates, it focuses on the historical development of anti-Semitism from the medieval era to the present. Although the main focus is on the anti-Semitic tradition in European, basically, history, it also analyzes conspiracism on a more general level, highlighting the structural similarities between anti-Semitism and other forms of demonizations. The web resource was planned and constructed between August 2016 and September 2017. Our main intention was to create a tool for teachers working within lower and higher secondary school in Norway, which means pupils between 13 and 19 years old. Still, we also think that this resource provides valuable knowledge for broader audiences, such as journalists, writers, and university students. Anti-Semitism past and present consists of 8 main pages. In addition, we have also written 10 texts focusing on more specific topics related to the history of anti-Semitism, such as, for example, a text about the ritual murder accusation, a text about the pogroms during the Black Death, anti-Semitism and the Holocaust in Norway, and so on, several others also. Furthermore, the resource also contains wider interviews with researchers and Jewish youth, and concrete suggestions for teaching arrangements also. The 8 main pages, which is the skeleton of the resource, follows a common thematical pattern. First, they deal with continuity and discontinuity of anti-Semitic ideas, the evolvement from Christian anti-Judaism to modern anti-Semitism, and from this to an anti-Semitism without anti-Semites after 1945. Second, they focus on the context of anti-Semitism, more precisely how social, economic, political, and cultural traditions affected the strength and character of anti-Jewish mobilization. Third, I highlight the different consequences of anti-Jewish sentiments, from violence and discrimination and stigmatization to social distance. I will, during the rest of my presentation, try to very briefly guide you through the 8 main pages of our resource. I will also very shortly present some of the content of the different pages here and the line of, so to speak, argumentation which is presented. Yeah. The first page is a general introduction to
На первой странице вы находите общую информацию о антисемитизме как феномене. И здесь вы можете найти цитаты, и также вы можете найти здесь описание отрицательных эмоций, которые человек испытывает, если против него направлен антисемитизм.
Anti-Semitism can be expressed both as ideology and notion and as action, from harassment and discrimination to state-organized violence. Quote ends. As some of you will probably recognize, our understanding of anti-Semitism here is highly inspired by the classical definition made by Helen Fine. Furthermore, the introduction also presents general patterns of development of anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism from the pre-modern era to the present. The second main page deals with the hostility towards and the persecution of the Jewish minorities during the medieval era. It explains the theological foundations of Christian anti-Judaism and describes how anti-Jewish sentiments and practices were intensified during the high medieval and late medieval era. Particularly, it highlights the history of the blood libel and the conspiracy narratives about Jewish well poisoning. These accusations led to violent persecutions, with the anti-Jewish pogroms during the Black Death in the middle of the 14th century as a point of culmination. The third page deals with the Reformation era, and particularly with Martin Luther's attitudes towards the Jews, his changing attitudes towards the Jews. This is important in a Norwegian context because Norway became a Lutheran country from the 16th century onward. The fourth page focuses on how anti-Jewish stereotypes and narratives changed during the Enlightenment. On the one hand, the intellectual foundations were laid for the legal emancipation of the Jewish minorities. On the other hand, new and more modern anti-Jewish stereotypes were produced. Philosophers just as Voltaire described Judaism as barbaric, archaic, and outdated. As a result, the Jews were represented as a threat to progress, liberty, and reason. In the liberal Norwegian constitution of 1814, Jews were actually banned from entering the country. The ideological background was precisely what can be called an enlightened anti-Semitism of the same character that was advocated by, among others, Voltaire. The fifth main page is a very important one. Here we describe the evolvement of modern anti-Semitism in the last part of the 19th century and during the first decades of the 1900s. In this section of the research, we focus on the gradual transition from religious prejudices to racialist and nationalist anti-Semitism. We also point out that modern anti-Semitism emerged in a world ridden by rapid social, political, economic, and cultural changes. In fact, modern anti-Semitism became a flexible explanatory model which was used to grasp confusing and threatening social developments. Among the most extreme anti-Semites, liberalism, socialism, capitalism, the modern press, and decadent art and literature were described as tools of an international Jewish conspiracy. The text also describes the emergence of political anti-Semitism, the foundation of anti-Jewish parties, organizations, and leagues. The sixth main page presents Nazi anti-Semitism. In the first part, the National Socialist image of the Jew is explained. Here we use Saul Friedlander's term redemptive anti-Semitism as an interpretation. The National Socialist worldview and propaganda viewed history and politics as an apocalyptic battle between Germanic, so-called Germanic people, and the Jew. The latter was represented as an agent of destruction and evil, with the myth of the Jewish world conspiracy as an essential element. After the outbreak of the Second World War, the Nazi regime used conspiracy theories as a prism to to understand the ongoing development of the war itself. Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin were described as marionettes of an entity called International Jewry. All these things are explained in this part of the research. The second part of the text focuses on the development of the National Socialist anti-Jewish policy, from legal discrimination and social stigmatization to violent persecution and genocide. Here, Holocaust is placed within the framework of the broader history of anti-Semitism as its point of culmination, violent culmination.
I'm sorry, you have another 2 minutes.
2 minutes, that's perfect, I think.
Thank you.
The seventh main text deals with anti-Semitism after 1945, how the experiences with Nazism and the Holocaust have affected the conditions of anti-Semitism and how it has been re-articulated. One important point is that traditional political anti-Semitism, at least in Western and large part of Central Europe, has been scandalized. As a result, anti-Jewish sentiments are to a large extent expressed outside the public in the private sphere. At the same time, new anti-Semitic narratives have evolved. One such narrative is, of course, Holocaust denial. Another new element, also described in the web resource, is the use of anti-Semitic stereotypes in the agitation against Israel and its policies. So, the last main page of the web resource is a bit different. Here, anti-Semitism is compared with other forms of conspiracy theories. Two examples are used: the anti-Muslim conspiracism, which motivated the Norwegian terrorist Anders Behring Breivik to murder 77 persons in Norway on July 22, 2011. The second example is the anti-Tutsi propaganda of the Hutu power movement in Rwanda before and during the genocide in 1994. Through this focus, we want to show that the history of anti-Semitism is, in this sense, important in preventing atrocities not only against Jews, but also against other groups.
10 seconds.
To conclude. Sorry?
10 seconds.
To conclude, we view anti-Semitism past and present as a much-needed tool to learn, especially young people, to recognize anti-Semitism in different forms and shapes. It offers a nuanced and thorough, but not too difficult map of the historical development of anti-Semitism. Furthermore, it also highlights the relevance of the past in the present. In a world where racist and anti-Semitic violence sadly still consists a threat, such knowledge is, in our opinion, crucial. And thank you very much. I think
thank you so
that
much.
was like 10 seconds or something.
Thank you so much. We will go directly to the next speaker from Lithuania, director of Vilna Gaon Museum of Jewish History, Kamilė Rupeikaitė.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this forum, and I will go straight to my slides. I hope you can see my slides. Okay, great. So briefly, I would like to say a few words about our museum. We are operating since 1989. We are a state museum dedicated to Lithuanian Jewish history and culture, Holocaust research, remembrance and education, and fostering of historical memory. We have around 40,000 exhibits, very different ones, ritual objects, printed materials, manuscripts, photographs, lots of art, sculptures, and other items. How we present? We present it in permanent and temporary exhibitions, traveling exhibitions. We have created 4 documentary films on the topic of righteous among the nations, because we dedicate a very special attention to this topic. Also, currently the museum has 3 operating, I'm sorry, I just need to, okay, now it's fine. Currently we have 3 operating branches, Samuel Bach Museum, Holocaust Exhibition, and Paneri Memorial, and we're expanding, but I will not talk about that as I have no time this time. What Dagmara has so nicely described about their different activities in education. So I decided not to mention them all. Of course, we don't have so many as POLIN, but I decided to choose one project to present here. And it is based on the collection of Samuel Bach. Samuel Bach is the artist born in Vilnius in 1933, and as he himself says, my chances to survive were equal to 0. But he survived the Vilna ghetto and became a renowned artist. Only he and his mother survived. All his family was killed in Paneri. And he lives in Boston, and he's a very close friend of the museum. He donated his works to the museum. And the collection consists of about 170 works. Most of it are painted in postmodern style of allegorical realism. Through allegoric symbols, keys, chess figures, cracked vessels, Bach recounts the tragic experience of war, loss of his whole family except his mother, persecution, and hiding in the monastery. However, his works are full of hope that a broken world can be recreated from pieces. So we developed one initiative which is called Tolerance Through Art, and it was inspired by the life story and works of Samuel Bach. It consists of 2 interactive projects, and its aim is to help visitors to build a personal relationship with history and Bach's art and discover their own moral identity. What we think that personal relationship with history is very important in order to shape the person's moral worldview. And also, this project encourages through modern interactive means a debate on issues sensitive both to the past and the present society. Here we have one initiative is interactive sightseeing tour, which is called The Road of Samuel Bach. And this initiative takes the museum outside museum walls into the city to meet its visitors, passers-by. The tour provides an opportunity to hear about the young artist's experiences in Vilnius occupied by the Nazis. It leads through the 4 places of special significance in Sam's life, through this former family home in Vilnius, through a hiding place in the old Benedictine monastery, the first exhibition of his in the Vilnius ghetto, and finally to the Samuel Bach Museum, where visitors can see dozens of paintings by the artist donated to Lithuania. The 4 stops on the tour route are marked by artistic signs, and you can see one of the signs here. Works of small metal plastic created by the famous Lithuanian artist Romualdas Inčirauskas. After reading the QR code at each stop, visitors can hear the authentic stories told by a boy. All the stories are based on the artist's book of memories, painted in words, Memories of Vilnius. Samuel Bach is a wonderful writer, by the way, not only the painter. After hearing the story of the young Samuel Bach, visitors have the opportunity to play a game, to spin a dreidel. The answers received in an unexpected form give meaning to the tragic experience of Jewish history. Here you can see school groups coming, listening to the stories after scanning the sign, seeing the sign and the QR code, scanning the QR code. The second part of this project is interactive website, The Art of Samuel Bach, and is dedicated mostly to school children and is designed to be used in lessons of ethics, history, or art. In search of answers to the question why art is needed, one reviews Bach's work through 9 distinctive symbols. Here, as in the world of art, there is no one fit answer for all. The aim of this project is to foster open thinking and different perspective. And here you see some examples from the website. You have different questions, you can choose your own answer, and the main categories are these 9 symbols of Bach's work. So to sum up, that was really quick, I believe. I believe in power of personal encounter with history, which provides an opportunity for ethical education. Museums of historical memory have 2 great opportunities: to foster empathy and to foster dialogue. It is important to do this in a modern language, which would be understood by the generations of today. Thank you so much. I stop sharing the screen.
Thank you so much, Kamilė. Thank you. And we're moving to Erevan, to Armenia, to the director of the Armenian Genocide Museum-Insitute, Harutyun Marutyan.
So can you see, get started?
Yes, perfect. You can start. Thank you.
No. You are screen sharing, new share. But how to... Yes, that's PowerPoint. Yes. So hello to everyone, and thank you for invitation to participate in this conference. I titled my presentation Xenophobia in the Museums as a Manifestation of State Policy and the Ways to Overcome it. Classical museums are known as places that provide information and knowledge, cultivate respect among visitors in the preservation and use of cultural heritage, educate the younger generation, and ultimately foster mutual understanding between people and create opportunities for dialogue. That is how museums are called to serve society and its development. Museums are also bearers of certain ideologies. As a rule, the ideology that is presented through a museum exhibition is also part of a state ideology. Thus, thanks to the activities of museums, tolerance towards foreign cultures is nurtured. And in that way, museums struggle against xenophobic expressions. Ultimately, such a policy leads to the strengthening of democracy. I was happy to conduct 7 months of research on the topic Memory Based on Politics, Comparative Study of Armenian Jewish Experience at the US Holocaust Memorial Museum in 2009-10. Every day, I witnessed lines of people at the entrance of the museum. Visitors knew that this was not a Louvre or Smithsonian Institution museum, that the exhibition here was about hard topics, but the flow of people did not stop. I became convinced that visitors to this museum would certainly not have anti-Semitic sentiments in the future. The USHMM exhibition also discusses universal themes, one of the most important of which is what happens to the society of that country and to the world in general if a racist, xenophobic, and totalitarian regime comes to power in a wealthy country seeking revanchism. Therefore, the museums usually construct narratives and shape the attitudes and beliefs of a nation. Meanwhile, they can also manipulate memories and become a tool for the propaganda of intolerance and xenophobia. Moreover, they do it not in disguise, but in a very open way. Such a museum was opened on April 12th of this year in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. It is called Military Trophies Park. My text below is based on the quotes from the message of Radio Free Europe and an article by Neil Hauer, a freelance writer, contributor to CNN and The Guardian on Twitter. I'm quoting, "Many countries have war museums paying tribute to conflicts, combatants, and chronicling the battles that usually resulted in a great victory for the nation. What's less usual is for such a museum to open mere months after the war and to feature cartoonish-like mannequins of the enemy soldiers. Yet that is what is on display in downtown Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, in a museum that was inaugurated on April 12 by Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. Dubbed the Military Trophies Park, the sprawling exhibit features dozens of Armenian tanks, trucks, and other heavy military equipment captured on battlefields during last year's 44-day war between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Along with the military equipment, this open-air museum displays wax mannequins of Armenian soldiers placed in makeshift barracks and cars. Some of the figures show wounded soldiers. The park opens with a rather chilling display, an enclosure adorned with the helmets of Armenian soldiers killed in fighting just a few months ago. It then takes visitors through a number of makeshift Armenian positions, including mock bunkers and barracks, adorned with wax models of grossly exaggerated life-size figures of dead and dying Armenian soldiers and chained captives. While the park unveiling was met with shock, disgust in Armenia and further abroad, the mannequins who bear exaggerated figures such as hooked noses and distorted faces have drawn the most outrage. A few days after the park's opening, the creators of the mannequins gave an interview removing all doubt as to their intentions, stating that they had, I'm quoting, tried to create the most freakish depictions, end of quote, of Armenians possible. Racial-focused rhetoric, anti-Armenianism, and demonization has been a part of Aliyev's ideological stance for nearly 2 decades of his authoritarian rule, and his government has projected it onto Azerbaijani society, end of quote. Judging by the comments on social media, the absolute majority of the Azerbaijani society was very enthusiastic about the opening of the park in Baku. The Armenian Foreign Ministry condemned the project of the War Trophy Park. I am quoting, "This action is aimed at publicly degrading the memory of the victims of the war, missing persons and prisoners of war, and violating the rights and dignity of their families. The misanthropic behavior of the top leadership of Azerbaijan is more eloquent than any statement or PR campaign about peace, tolerance, and multiculturalism. At a time when the consequences of Azerbaijan's war against Karabakh have not yet been fully overcome, and many Armenian soldiers are being held captive in Azerbaijan, organizing such an exhibition, so-called exhibition, accompanied by elements of looting, will finally give Azerbaijan a place in the center of world xenophobia," reads the official statement of the ministry released on April 13. I want to finish this part of my presentation with a quote from Maria Titizian from evnreport.com. I am quoting, "All of this is unfolding before our eyes, before your eyes. It happened during the war as Azerbaijani troops committed documented war crimes. It happened after the war as Azerbaijani troops destroyed Armenian historical and cultural heritage in Artsakh. And now we have a house of horrors of a military museum. The silence from the international community and all those who spoke about preparing populations for peace is defeating," end of quote. During the 44-day war, I, as the director of the Armenian Genocide Museum-Insitute, and Dr. Suren Manukyan, UNESCO Chair on Education and Prevention of Genocide and Other Atrocity Crimes, Erevan State University, appealed to nearly 160 Holocaust research organizations and museums, asking to raise their voice against xenophobia and the threat of genocide. We received feedback only from a few individual researchers, not organizations. There was a statement from a group of genocide scholars on the imminent genocidal threat deriving from Azerbaijan and Turkey against Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, with 81 signatures. The statement ends with the following appeal, I'm quoting, "We, as members of the academic community, demand that the international community takes direct and serious action so that the Azerbaijani aggression immediately ceases, and that anti-Armenian state propaganda and hatred in Azerbaijan and Turkey ends. We appeal to the international community to raise their voices against xenophobia, aggression, and war, and for the prevention of new genocide. Organizations engaged in Holocaust research in the fight against xenophobia unfortunately remained silent." This is the picture of the statement and those who put their signatures. I want to end my speech with a positive note. I am a director of the Armenian Genocide Museum-Insitute Foundation for 3 years now, since October 2018. For the first time in Armenia, Holocaust Remembrance Weeks were held in January 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the President of the Republic of Armenia addressed an extensive greeting message on that occasion. From the very beginning of my tenure, I have set a task for my staff to include information about the genocide of the Greeks and Assyrians during World War I, as well as special panels dedicated to the Holocaust, the genocide in Cambodia and Rwanda, as well as of the Yazidi people in the permanent exhibition of the museum. Although this part of the exhibition is not yet ready for some reasons, I hope that in January 2022, we will inaugurate these sections as part of our main exhibition. This will be done with a solemn aim to educate people and fight against xenophobia and racism. If such a stance is deployed by different similar museums, we can hope for a better society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will move now from online space to offline. And I give a word to present here, founder of the Crossroads of Civilization Museum and Holocaust Museum in Dubai, Ahmed Obeid al-Mansoori.
Shalom, salam alaikum jami'an. Thank you very much and good morning. First of all, my apologies for being late because I thought I'll be in the second session with the museum forum. That's why I was called late, because I did not have the itinerary with my name. My apologies for becoming late today. I do have presentation. I don't know if they will put it up. But I can start without
it. Put the,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Can I have control over this? Is it possible to have control? Is there control, remote control to change the slides? Oh, thank you. So which one? This one? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I'm very honored and privileged to be among my colleagues, team colleagues on the panel, and with all of you here. As you can see, the title of my presentation will be about the museum. Museums as one of the best practices to combat anti-Semitism, Zionism, anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and also xenophobia, also and racism. So, before talking about the museum, I would like to talk about the base of what we have. It's very important, if we're going to start something, whether it's a museum or an institution, we should have some kind of cultural acceptance, some kind of root. We need to know the roots of things. Otherwise, it's going to be something very, very shallow, very superficial. So, in the country, we have like pillars for the tolerance, and we have some values that we are basing our roots things from. So here, I'm going to mention very few things. For example, as you know, the religion of the country is Islam. We have I will mention only 3 verses, which are very important to know the basis for the tolerance, the basis for everything we have here. This is like, when Arabic would say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم في ذلك الآيات للعالمين. There is an acknowledgement that we are different as human, and we will differ, and we see beauty in the differences. The second one, ولو شاء ربك لجعل الناس أمة واحدة ولا يزالون مختلفين. And if you can see the English, if the Lord, if He willed, He could have made all mankind one community, but they will also cease not to. They will not cease to such differences. The second one, the most important thing, which is also in the United Nations preliminary, this verse. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل تعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. So the most important thing here is that we have basis for what we are doing there, the roots for that, and that's very important to remind. We are coming from the Middle East, from the Arabian Peninsula. Religion, culture, kinship bonds, all of these values are very important to move forward with. And these are the basis which made for the Abrahamic Accord. And this Abrahamic Accord, which happened in 2019 February, with the visit of the His Holiness, he came to the UAE, and the signing of the accord, what was one of the important initiatives during the toughest time for the whole world, during the pandemic, during the the whole world was going down economically, socially, politically, everything. Lots of problems happened internationally, and in the Middle East, the land of instability, the area was very instability, and this initiative was actually a great hope that, from even within the Middle East, we can even have hope. And it was, I think, it took us miles ahead of, what we have dreamed. I think all of us should use this project as a catalyst project, initiative, I'm talking about the Abrahamic Accord, so we can use as a platform to promote tolerance. Tolerance not in the minimum level of it, tolerating, tolerance in the level of openness, of embracing, of giving others. So this initiative really made a big boost. And also in February, at the end of the meeting, we have a few friends, rabbi from the United States and Israel. They came to my museum, and they know about it because my museum, since 2012, they put a mezuzah on the door of the Holy Land there. The first mezuzah in the royal house and the non-Jewish place. And after that, everybody knows about Bahrain joined there also, and other countries, and hopefully others will move. Doesn't matter how slow, but the pace of movement, people to people, is much faster, and than the political one. So there's willingness in the Gulf, even in other countries. The issue is getting much better there. However, we've talked about the Abrahamic Accord. It's very important about the values of the country. Let's focus now on the museum. So, which was before all of that. And this museum could have not been happened if there was no culture of acceptance. What happens with the museum, the beauty of the museums, is that people who come to the museum, they put their political and judgmental hats outside, they can make a journey into history, and then they see themselves. Museums are, if I may say, are much more effective than conferences and workshops for a reason, because people see real items. As an example, we have pictures in my museum or photos of places of the Jews in the Middle East and MENA region. So to remind the people, the Jews are not foreigners. They are from the region. They did not come from outside. And if there's political narrative for 70 years, that should not affect the history there. So, for example, the effect of these photos are very important, historical places. We have, for example, artifacts. People, when they come there, they're very curious. They see, lots of similarities. It is the same God, same religion, that we believe in the same prophets. We have differences in few elements. However, that does not make us deviate. It's even the Quran says always, go back to the old books, go back to the holy books, go back to this. So there's the difference. Although some people, extremists or fundamentalists, they say you should not read other books. That's not true. For us, in the Quran, it says, always go back. Everything's written there. So it's the same thing. So it's very important to emphasize on these elements. In the museum, we have many, many items. I'm going to talk about the Crossroads civilization. Why did I call it Crossroads? I wanted to find a very humble name when I started. Humble name, it's a crossroad. In every country, there's a crossroad. And in every country, you have minorities. Every country, you have people from diversity. Our land there, we are, according to the United Nations, we are one of the high density of multiculturals we have there. More than 200 ethnicities, around 196 and above. That's to be exact number. And that place, when people come from different places, they don't come because of oil, of money. I mean, many countries are richer than us. It's because of the values. There are certain things being in there. I call it Crossroads also because the location of the museum, where the government gave me in 2011, it's between the Dubai Creek, where we found artifacts and archaeological items through barter deal were exchanged from the east to the west, west to the east since 3000 BC. I did not know about that. I learned it in the United States, by the way, when I was studying there. I learned when I was taught in my country that we have no history. But that was good. We were focusing on building the future. Later, when we got the money, we started building, because our houses were from tents and from palm tree leaves. So what happened later, when you start building, you have to dig. When you dig, you find things. So the higher you want to go, the more you have to dig. So the higher you want to go in the future, more sophisticated building, the more you have to go down. So which worked for us very well. So we found many artifacts from the east were imported and re-exported to the west, and vice versa. Also, we have, for example, one of the items of a gift from the United States is a coin from King Trajan. That's the link between the West and here. King Trajan, because of the Roman Empire, any place he goes, he mint a coin specific for them. So he meant, what was the fantasy or perception of Arabia at that time? A little princess with a baby camel, that's the coin, and with the synonym branches. So we have many things we were discovering when we went to history. So this museum focused on the values that brought the traders together, people from different cultures, different ethnicities. At that time, there was no United Nations, there was no international law, but people saw some values there and trust that they can bring their goods there. So we focus on values of multiculturalism, values of positive thinking. How can we accept others? And these are very important. Values of highlighting the greatness of different civilizations. And for me, the best thing about the museum, when I see children from different ethnicities, when they come to the museum, they see, they see themselves there. They see things from their history that boost although they are foreigners, they feel very comfortable. Also, under the same umbrella, they see others are important. So unconsciously, we are teaching people, everyone is important. But if I make a museum to say that I'm the greatest empire, I'm the first, if I say that I'm the best, then by default, we are teaching others that they are less. So, that's unconsciously. So in my museum, everybody is equal. And there's no gallery, there's nothing about, here in the museum, we're not talking about promoting a certain religion or certain ethnicity. It's about everything. And such platform paved the way for acceptance, for people to talk, dialogue, and pave the way for the Holocaust Gallery, which is the first Holocaust gallery in the Arab or Islamic world, which is permanent, and so people can see that. And I'm going to say, Mika, later why did I make the Holocaust Gallery there. So these are certain examples of what we have in the museums. And if you can read, we have rarest items from the region. We have rarest items from the region. To show, and for example, this was the gift yesterday we gave in the gala dinner to the president of the Jewish Congress, Russian Jewish Congress. This is a prayer bowl, very beautiful. It has 3 Semitic language in one bowl, 3 Aramaic and Hebrew, and the wording in Arabic. And this is a very beautiful prayer there. And then we have Abkhatuba. So people are coming there and learning more and more. My whole point is that we try. I don't talk with people about values there when they come with the children. We show them. We make them. They themselves discover these things. Whatever we're doing is like paving the way in a very positive way. We do lots of activities. We focus on children. We focus on the great values, and also we do many Jewish activities there, to bring people together. And we have people coming from the locals, of course, and others visiting there, and lots of curiosities and lots of talks and dialogue, more increasing the awareness. Last, if I'm talking about the Holocaust Gallery, when we started it, people at the beginning, many people they don't know. There are different narratives about Holocaust in the Middle East. Everybody knows that. So how can we highlight that one? By providing the right documents, the right activities, and we have very help from the Jewish community there, who survived, children of the survived the 2nd and 3rd generation of the stories, and this is very important because I tell people, we show positive things, the relationship historically. We have very beautiful things there throughout the centuries, but we cannot deny there are bad things happen in history. And if we don't have peace, we don't have this tolerance, we don't have this acceptance, such tragedy can, which is the worst crime against humanity, the genocide, can happen anytime and can happen to anybody else. So how can we learn from that? And it's very important people also not to be in denial and put political things aside and also focus on that. It has been very well accepted in the country, and also the government, when they did the Holocaust Gallery, they said, they would like to support you more. That was very good to sign. And one last thing, I'm the owner of the museum, I'm the curator of the museum, and that gives a different kind of taste, because it's not government. Usually government, they have to focus on certain identities, certain values in every country to promote. But there is kind of rapport and congruency between our values as people and the government. And that's why it's going to grow and become much bigger, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's very impressive. Thank you. And we move now from Middle East to United States of America. And I'm happy to present a Vice Chairman and Board of Trustees, Museum of Us, San Diego, United States of America, Ileana Oval. Yes.
Thank you very much. Not sure if you have my presentation. If you do, I'm just going to wait 1 second. I'll go ahead and get started, though. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. An extreme honor for me to be representing the Museum of Us in San Diego, California. I'm actually a board member, not on staff, so I'd like to just take a second to say it's our staff who does the incredibly hard and impressive work that makes the museum a success. And so I'd like to thank staff, and I'd also just like to thank the Russian Jewish Congress for having us here. Just a quick history. I'm going to try to run through this very fast for you all. There's a lot to say. I'm very impressed with all of my fellow colleagues here on the panel. We actually were established in 1915 as a true anthropology museum, really centered originally on the differences between people, and essentially the differences in biology of people. And so what we are now doing is we are reimagining our museum and pulling ourselves away from that, and specifically talking about our how more alike we are than different. And that is really a critical moment where I won't have all this beautiful history and important history and critical history to share as my colleagues have. It's really important for me to share where this museum is going. We are actually located in a building that is, the facade is fully covered with colonists who unrightfully took land from the Native Americans in the United States. So we always start every single one of our meetings and we say, and this is our building here, thank you, that we are located on the unceded land of the Kumeyaay Nation, and that have lived here in time immemorial. So we acknowledge that even where we sit, the history as far back as we can identify, that the land that we are on was taken, and it wasn't actually ours. And so that is a way for us to talk about how we're reimagining the museum and going as far back. So I'd like to talk about 3 topics, and that is the opening to how the museum is reimagining itself internally. Number 2, exhibits, and also then our learning. So internally, I think I'll start there. You can see here it says Museum of Us, but originally we were and this is our mission, inspiring human connections by exploring the human experience. And I'll actually go here. How are we doing that? We're actually trying to present different ways of thinking. We want people to really understand the humans by how we operate in our lifetime, really getting people to think differently, to be open-minded, to have heart. And that's really how we're reimagining the museum. We are coming at this from, you don't hear this a lot, but a space of love. We really have said that anyone who's going to sit on the board can't be the smartest person in the room, that we have to be open-minded, and that we have to build trust in order to transform this museum. Let me see. This here is the facade of the building, and these are the colonizers that we were talking about. The interesting thing is that it's such a great story for the museum to show that these individuals are actually the ones who caused harm. So we actually have to talk about the internal product that we have within the museum, about how these people on the outside really impacted how we curate, a term that we used to use, the insides of our museum. So I'll stay here for a second. So internally, I'll share, we changed our name from Museum of Man to us to be much more inclusive of everybody. We also do that land acknowledgement that I just shared with you. We're now truth-telling about how we got our collection. And the reason why this is important is because we know throughout Europe, during the Holocaust, how many artifacts, how much art, everything that was taken in an untoward manner. But even our museum, what we really try to do is be very truthful about how we have accepted different items in our museum, and we're actually returning them. We're actually returning items that we collected in an untoward manner. And people say, well, what are they going to do with those items? Well, it's not up to us, because we actually didn't collect them in an appropriate manner. And so, and then we also give our employees community-centered time off, so that you're not going by a Catholic calendar and doing just Christmas and Easter, that everyone can take time off in whatever their own community is. So you can celebrate the high holy days, so that you can celebrate whatever you want, whenever you want. Is there a liability? You know, maybe it's a little more challenging to staff the museum, but we're really trying to focus on our people. And the reason that's important as well is because we can't have a progressive museum unless we're really looking internally about how we do our own processes. So some of the products that, some of the exhibits that we've had is, this is one that we transformed from this whole full anthropology museum talking about our differences to really looking at this. This is called Race, Are We Really So Different? And this in particular, we look at all of it. We look at our Jewish people, Black people, Native Americans, everything, Asians, and say, when you look at the biology, how different are we? Well, really not that different. But we want to celebrate each of our cultures. So in this exhibit specifically, we actually walk through all of the different types of people throughout the world and really celebrate those, the cultures, the traditions, but then we also look and say, when you look at the biology, it's really not that different. And so we do use science, and we also make sure that we're really talking about and celebrating all the different cultures. So this is a really impactful, it has been one of our most successful. We actually purchased this, ended up purchasing this. We were just going to use this for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but because of the response from the community, and I'm not going to say it was always good, it was really powerful. People would say, well, what do you mean I'm like that race? Well, you're not that different. And this was really very challenging, I think, for our museum to really make sure that we provided the space for dialogue, that we provided a space for people to have these difficult discussions. For some people, it's just difficult. For some people, they're like, yeah, of course, you know, makes perfect sense. But it is, again, so now we're actually taking this. We invite, we actually, how do I say this? I'm actually giving away a little bit for the later part, but the part of our learning and education part is that we actually bring corporations in, big corporations. And I don't know, the big technology companies, like in San Diego, one of them would be Qualcomm. We're doing for the energy company, for huge companies, bringing in people and training them about this. So this is a huge moment for our museum to make an impact so people can understand how much more alike we are, and trying to remove the xenophobia and trying to remove the racism. And, you know, it's hard work, but we're still far from over. We also take this program into schools, so K through 12, and teach our students as well. And so that's part of the learning, as well as do tours for universities. So that has been a really important piece of this program as well. And this actually is just showing our staff and board. We're back to the beginning where I was saying we can't move forward without looking internally at our processes. This shows you how we changed our name from the San Diego Museum of Man to Museum of Us so that we're much more inclusive. And language matters. We no longer talk about our collection as a collection. We call them cultural resources so that we're not collecting. We're actually saying these are your cultural resources. And so we bring in people from those communities. So if I have something from the Jewish community, then I want the Jewish community to tell me how they want it to be presented. I want the Jewish community to come in and say, how do you, this is how we want it to be presented. This is how the story we want you to tell. If it's our, African-American community, we want them to tell us how to do that. So we let them tell us how we want it to be presented. Our policies, I mentioned a little bit about our internal policies, but we do have an exhibit that is called Hostile Terrain that I mentioned yesterday in our cultural presentation. Hostile Terrain is a map that's on a wall that documents the journey that people make to try to cross the Mexican-U.S. border. At least 3,200 people have died since policies were created in 1994. During that time, all their names, if they could find out who it was, their age and how they died were written down. We did a workshop with community members, and they came in and filled out those on toe tags, which they put on people who pass away. And we actually put them up on the map so that people could see where these people died. The reason why this was important and thank you, Anatoly, for saying this yesterday, is that it really helps build empathy. And for us is really trying to translate not just people dying, but say, yes, it's a human. It's not just that person from Mexico, the xenophobia that you feel that you're trying to put up this wall to keep them out. And it's on us to really make sure that we can do that. This we already talked about. When we changed our name, it was very challenging. This hit the news, and we got emails and voicemails from all over the world. And so, thank you. So much more to say if you have any questions. Also, you can check out our website. Obviously, there's a lot of learning there with the Smithsonian Lab, Google Arts and Culture, and you can see free programs for teachers. And please feel free to come to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing projects and the museum. And I wish we could travel now and visit all the museums we heard about. I think we will go for the break a little bit earlier for 15 minutes. And then we will reconnect here, continue with the presentation. We have four presenters, more four presenters, and then Emil would moderate the discussion and roundtable. Thank you.